Hello everyone, my name is Sarafi and I'm happy to meet you all. And today we're going to be talking about 6 different ideas that I have for Master Rule 6. We've had Master Rules in the game before. Basically, anytime Konami thinks that the actual overall rules of the game need to be updated or changed, they make a new Master Rule. They haven't done that in a long time, and so people have been thinking that a new Master Rule 6 might be coming at some point. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about a few ideas I had for how we could improve the game, make the game better, and what Konami might do. So, first up, Master Rule 6 idea, change the extra deck from 15 cards to 20 cards. Fiendsmith, Millennium, and Horus shows that Konami is moving heavily in a direction of engine cards that can be played in your deck that don't lock you and that can be used for multiple purposes. For example, you have the Millennium engine that can literally just get you basically any rank 8 really fast because it allows you to play Snake Eyes Doom Dragon from your extra deck. You can also play Fiendsmith, which allows you to very easily get access to either a rank 6 with the Lacrima, or it can easily get you access to a negate with the Desiree. Horus also gives you some very interesting options. It gives you easy access to the Zombie Vampire, allowing you to mill in any deck that needs to mill. Also, you can get access to Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, which allows you to avoid Nibiru the Primal Being going first if your deck otherwise can't play into Nibiru. So, a lot of these decks, and they show no signs of slowing down. We're getting more and more decks that don't lock you. A lot of these engines are very powerful, and it seems like it's obvious ploy by Konami to sell cards because these cards can be played in a lot of different decks for a lot of different reasons. That's perfectly fine, but it's going to lock out people who can't necessarily run these decks because the extra deck is so costly. In particular with Fiendsmith, where you have Moon of the Closed Heaven, Fiendsmith's Requiem, Fiendsmith's Sequence, Desiree, and Lacrima. That's 5 cards. So that's why I'm saying 20 card extra deck. Just pay for the Fiendsmith extra deck. Especially with the TCG ban list that just happened, where they nerfed Ryziel and they nerfed Malice and they didn't nerf Fiendsmith. If they're going to push us to be in a situation where Fiendsmith is going to stick around forever, fine. But then in that case, if you think Fiendsmith is balanced and good for the game and you want to promote it, don't make it so costly to use to a player. So 20 card extra deck. It'll also make Konami more money because now everyone will need 5 more cards for their deck. So I do think that's something they probably will do at some point. Next up, this is the most controversial one. Change it so that every Pendulum monster has a hard once per turn when you activate it as a spell card. Just straight up, like, Pendulums have been a problem for a long time. They've gotten banned for various reasons. Lunalight Tiger got banned because it's very easy to recycle its effect. Performage Plushfire got banned because it's very easy to recycle its effect. And all of this is because these cards can be activated from your hand very, very easily, and it's always easy to recycle them from your extra deck or draw more copies of them. So just to kind of put a cap on it, make it so that Pendulum decks stop being so combo-oriented, so long-winded. Just say, okay, if you activate any Pendulum card for the rest of the turn, you cannot activate a card that has the same name just as from your hand. Like, I'm not saying that you should put a hard once per turn on the Pendulum effect. I'm not saying that you should put a hard once per turn on the monster effect. I'm saying that the action to play a card in the Pendulum zone from your hand should be a hard once per turn on all Pendulum cards. I know that will interfere with some specific Pendulum cards, but the cost of it will not be as great as the benefit. And the benefit is that Konami hates Pendulums. They really don't want to make Pendulum decks good. The new Pendulum decks are Valmonica and Valence. When was the last time you saw a Valence player? And Valmonica is only mediocre. And really, Valmonica isn't, like... It's hard to call Valmonica really a Pendulum deck anyway, because all they get is 2 Pendulum cards, and they can't even Pendulum summon their normal monster, the Celatries, because she's a regular monster. She's not a Pendulum monster. So you can't recycle her from the extra deck anyway. Then you could look at Nemlaria. Is Nemlaria really a Pendulum deck? Not really. It doesn't even have 2 Pendulum scales. So when you look at all the new Pendulum support that we've gotten in the last year or two, it's all bad or weird because they don't want to print new cards or make new decks that are actually Pendulum decks because Pendulum is problematic. So I mean, if we want Pendulum to be a thing that happens moving forward, then they need to actually nerf Pendulums again so that the Pendulum mechanic itself stops being so difficult to deal with. And I think that making it so that you can only activate each Pendulum card, like every Pendulum card, every one of them, only once per turn, will fix all of the old Pendulum cards so that Konami can print new Pendulum cards that are actually good. Okay. For number 3, I can't take credit for this one because I've seen it on YouTube before, on a couple of other videos. I can't even remember who I saw it from first, probably Distant Coder, but I don't remember. And that is the player that is going second starts with 6 cards in their hand but does not draw on turn 1. The only thing that changes is that you have a higher likelihood of opening a hand trap so you can interact with your opponent on turn 1, which is perfectly fine. Like, we want to encourage interaction on turn 1, that's why they print hand traps to begin with. There's very little benefit for most decks that have in having like a non-hand trap card. Like, for example, if you're playing Magical Musketeers, right, and your 6th card is not Max C or Ash Blossom, and instead it's Magical Musketeer Caspar. Having that card in your hand during your opponent's turn 1 doesn't really do much. It does kind of, I guess, guard you against hand rip, which is perfectly fine. Like, hand rip should be bad. But it doesn't really, it's not like for most decks. I know there are some decks, but not for most decks. It's not going to give you like a play on turn 1 to have an extra card other than hand traps. So I think this would be very useful. It will make it more common for you to get Max Seed in the OCG, but I think Konami is going to ban Max C anyway, so that's perfectly fine. And then as far as Fualos and Perulia are concerned, those cards are, like, the game is going to be balanced around those cards moving forward anyway, so you just have to get used to the fact that you're going to get Perulia all the time now. Okay, this one I feel like has a very good shot of being activated at some point, implemented at some point, and that is that Quickplay spells can be activated the turn they are set. Because Quickplay spells can be activated the turn that they're drawn anyway, almost every Quickplay spell is not balanced around needing to wait one turn. They really aren't. They really are just like, hey, you know, super polymerization, like that. Like that's typical. I know that some rank up spells are quick play spells specifically so that you can set them from deck and then not immediately activate them, but that doesn't really matter. Like, rank up is not that good of an effect. It really isn't. Xyz has been power corrupted at this point. So, and the fact that you have to use a card to rank up for Xyz decks when other decks like Lynx and Synchros can just play monsters and rank up is already a drawback. So I don't think it was a problem. A lot of recent quick play search cards have stated that you can activate them this turn. I'm pretty sure there's a Raid Raptor card that came out recently that said you could activate the quick play spell you set this turn if it's a rank up card. So this restriction doesn't really change much. I know that in particular for a lot of people who are watching this video, they'll be like, well, what about Ether Dragon whatever Barrel and setting Primite Drill Beam? Well, Primite Drill Beam states that you can't use both of its effects in the same turn. So even if you could set the card and then even if you set the card from the graveyard with its own effect, you can't activate it the same turn because it's one effect per turn. It does mean that Primite will be a little bit better when you set it with. Oh wait, no. Okay, no, it is true that Drill Beam does say that you can only use each effect once per turn. Okay, Drill Beam in particular might need to get banned, but I mean, that's fine. Ban Drill Beam then. Who cares? Primite's already been good. They can it can tank a little bit, or you could errata it, I guess, and say that you could only use one effect per turn. It's fine. One quick play spell is balanced around not being able to be activated the turn that it's set. The rest of them aren't. So I think that they should do this. Okay. Next up, this is one that's been requested a ton, which is remove timing from the game. So if you have a when card instead of an if card and you activate it as a chain link 2, you can still resolve the effect even if it's not a mandatory effect. Missing activations does not add any nuance to the game. Very rarely does an opponent force someone to activate an activation timing card as a chain link 2 and make them miss timing. Basically, the only time that happens is when you are playing like Formula Synchron or another quick play synchro card, and your opponent just Book of Moons that card to force you to use it, so that when you synchro summon, if you have a when effect, it doesn't trigger, which is really annoying. It doesn't really feel like that's an intended benefit of your opponent. Like, your opponent's more so trying to force you to play the card so they can remove it. They're not really trying to negate your synchro effect, which is stupid anyway. So I really don't think that this adds anything. It's very, very frustrating for players, and I don't think that any card is really balanced around being able to miss timing. Even the cards that are the most commonly used that miss timing, like Stratos, I don't think that Stratos is... Because you can choose the order of cards resolving, right? I don't really feel like Stratos is really even that impacted by being able to miss timing, because you can literally just, like, when you summon Stratos from the graveyard, you can just choose to activate its effect as a Chainlink 1, and then you resolve all your other effects afterwards, and then you will still get the effect to search. So I don't see any cards that really benefit from missing timing, so I think that they should just take it out. All right. Lastly, this is going to be the one that probably sparks the most talking. Implement a new Duel Link style ban list system where a deck can only contain so many of a card that is at a certain tier. For example, instead of Pot of Prosperity being limit 1, Pot of Desires being limit 2, and Pot of Extravagance being limit 2 in the OCG, they could all be part of a limit 4 tier, where you could play any number of each card, but only up to 4 copies total. So I feel like, you could potentially play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance and 1 copy of Pot of Prosperity, but then you don't get to play Desires at all, and I feel like that would probably accomplish the same thing that Konami is really trying to hit when they put all these cards to limit 2 anyway. This allows dedicated lists to benefit from consistency. For example, you could play 3 copies of Kashtira Unicorn in a dedicated Kashtira deck, but it prevents cards that are generically useful from seeing play in other decks. So, if you say that Kashtira Unicorn is limit 3, and then you say that other cards that could be played, as useful fodder are limit 3. Like, for example, you could say that Kashtira Unicorn is limit 3, and then also Fiendsmith Engraver is limit 3. Or maybe you could say, Tier Limits Rhino Heart is limit 3. Okay, well now you're not going to see like a pile deck that uses all of these cards, whereas before you could very easily see that. But meanwhile, the Kashtira player who wants to play Kashtira and doesn't really have any better starters than Unicorn can play 3 Unicorns. And all they have to do is just stick to Kashtira and not dump a bunch of other cards in there. Then you could also, you could do something similar to what the TCG is trying to do, where they say, okay, Barone, Appaloosa, Borreload, Savage Dragon could all be limit 1. And then you could only play 1 of them, and then you don't have this like infinite negate end board of all these cards. And if they did that, then they could unban all of these cards. And then decks like Speedroids, for example, that really, really require an out to Nibiru early could play Barone, whereas a deck that's really toxic and summons a bunch of negates like Super Heavy Samurai would be limited to just Appaloosa, and that would be fair. I feel like maybe the TCG would still want to keep Appaloosa specifically banned because it's 4 negates, but I feel like this is fine. I feel like this could be completely fair, and it would be something that everyone would enjoy. All right, so that is my thoughts. Obviously, this would exist alongside the existing ban list, so like there will be some cards that just have to be like, you can only play 1 copy of this card because, they are cards that are unbalanced, is it Monster Reborn still limited to 1? Hold on. Pretty sure it is. Yeah, Monster Reborn is limited to 1 because Monster Reborn is literally like not once per turn, can be recycled infinitely, it can be used in any deck. So a card like that, it makes sense to have as a limit 1 just because there's no restrictions on it. But newer cards that only get restricted because they see play everywhere could be in this category where it's just like, okay, we just want to prevent you from playing so many of this pile together. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. My name is Serafi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.